Hi, my name is Mariam Rajput, and I'm a first-year medical student at Dow University of Health Sciences, and I'm the host of today's Excemy MedTalk series. Our guest today is a final-year medical student at Dow University of Health Sciences, Mr. Sarosh Siddiqui. Welcome.
Thank you, Mariam.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So why don't you begin by telling us the activities you're a part of at Dow?
Okay, so at Dow, I'm part of various organizations, starting off with the very first organization that I joined, SOCH, Server Community Health. At that time, it was known as Server Civil Hospital. So in my first year, I joined SOCH as the deputy director, and then I have been associated with that organization for the past 4.5 years, and currently I am serving as the board of advisors of SOCH. And then back in 2018, I founded an organization called Hamara Mustaqbil with a group of my friends. And alhamdulillah, for the past 3.5 years, that organization have been working for the education of underprivileged. And right now, I am working as the board of director of Hamara Mustaqbil. And then back in 2019, I founded the Society of Medical Research at Dow to promote the research culture amongst the students of Dow Medical College. उसके अलावा there are various organizations and various initiatives that have been started in Dow recently, which includes Dow Surgical Society, near peer mentorship program to help the first year students in settling down in Dow. And then we have got another organization called NAVA that works on the environment and climatic issues that are prevalent in our society. So I'm serving as the advisory council members there. So these are the organizations and these are the activities which I have been currently enrolled in.
So as a first year, I personally haven't heard of many of these organizations. So how did you discover them throughout the course of your med school career?
Okay, so when I joined Dow, I wasn't really passionate about the field of medicine. I was always passionate about management and volunteer work and welfare work. So when I came to Dow, I saw that there was a lack of opportunity. So I thought, why not create them? Right. So as I mentioned that initially there were only 2 or 3 organizations, which included Patient Welfare Association, SOCH and FRIP. So I started off with volunteering at Patients Welfare Association, and then I joined Server Civil Hospital, or now known as the Server Community Health Welfare Organization. And slowly and gradually I started to gain experience and started to work for those organizations, because back in my A-levels I was working in different societies, but working for a welfare organization and doing volunteer work at med school level was something different. So I took a year to gain those experience and gain those I would say those expertise and those skill sets that are needed. And then luckily I was lucky to find some like-minded people, and that helped me found Hamara Mustaqbil and Society of Medical Research. And then alhamdulillah, I see that there is a trend in Dow that now people are coming up with different initiative, and now there is an entire trend that has been started in Dow for extracurricular activities. So that's how I basically found different organizations, and I decided to create more.
So through it all, was it difficult to balance your academic life with the volunteer aspect of it all, as well as a social life, or did you manage a way to combine all into one?
Well, in the beginning, obviously it was difficult to manage the academic life, because after your A-levels, when you join med school, because medicine is a very tough field, right? It's one of the toughest field that we have. And managing med school along with these activities is not an easy job. So initially it was difficult, yes, because the jump from A-levels to medical school is a huge jump, and the way we study, the way we give the exam structure, each and everything is different here. So it took me a year to settle down, and during that year I was struggling academically, but eventually after a year I got to know how to basically manage Dow exams along with these activities. So since many of the juniors here would be watching this and they must be confused कि इतनी सारी opportunities हैं, हम क्या क्या करें, and उसके साथ how do we manage a field as tough as MBBS. So for them I would recommend them कि take a year, don't rush into things कि अच्छा ठीक है 10 organizations हैं तो मैं 10 की 10 आज ही join कर लूँ, but start off with 1 or 2 organizations at a very lower post, and then take a year to see and to judge what way of studying helps you in Dow. Like for example, अगर मैं अपनी बात करूँ, because my priority was always my organizations and my volunteer work. It was never academics. So throughout the year, like before the semesters, I used to invest my time in these activities, and at the same time जब time मिल जाता था तो मैं कभी books use कर लेता था, पढ़ लेता था, so that at the end of the exams मेरे लिए इतना ज़्यादा burden ना हो. सही है, but when it came to the exam time, जब prep leave start होती थी, then at that time my entire time was dedicated towards the studies. सही है, तो फिर उस time पे मेरा organizational work was at a corner, ठीक है, because at that time your priority is your exams. Because now what I have seen is that people are very over ambitious about extracurriculars, which is very good. But at the end of the day, we are in a very competitive setup, and being students of Dow Medical College and Dow University of Health Sciences, it's extremely important that you don't ignore your studies just like that, because at the end of the time, at the end of the year, it might get very difficult for you to even clear your exams. So it's better that आप पहले settle down हो जाओ, ठीक है, when you join medical school, and then eventually when things get into your control, academic point of view say, and then you can increase your welfare work and increase your social work as well.
So how do you feel that your grades have changed from the time that you were trying to stabilize to now?
Okay, so basically you're asking my GPA. Acha, so
Not to be so frank, but yeah.
okay, so when I joined Dow, at that time we had semester system. So in my first semester, I had a 2.7 GPA, which was very depressing, to be very honest, because usually Dow can there when become you get good grades, that's why you get into Dow, right? So coming from that background and then eventually ending up with the 2.7 GPA was very, I would say, depressing. Yeah, discouraging, because most of my friends, they went to IBA and they were scoring 3.8, 3.9, and I was like, acha, mere 2.7 aayi hai. So that was really depressing, but like as I mentioned that I took time to settle myself academically. Then right from 2.7, the next semester I jumped to 3.7, and eventually इसी तरह की GPA 3.3, 3.4 के.
After you found a method that worked.
Yes, exactly. मैं उस पर maintain करता रहा, and then last prof की I got a 3.8. So the point of telling, it's not a flex at all. So the point of telling is that it's okay if you are feeling difficulties in managing your studies at the beginning, because it's completely natural. The jump is like it's something which everyone feels. So it's completely okay if you're struggling academically, but eventually things would come into your favor if you get the right way to get through the exam.
Right. So through getting through your exams, what do you find being your biggest asset? What is your preferred method? Do you do short books, or do you rely on group study? What is your preferred method?
Okay, I'm glad that you asked this question, because there is no single method of acing medical school or getting through medical school, because if something is working for me, it might not work for you, say, and same goes for the way that you use for your studies. So I see many of my friends, they heavily depend on long books, and
it works for them.
Because it works for them. So and they perform very well after using long books. Some of my friends depends on group studies, वो घर पे जाके, and specifically my friends who are hostelites, वो तो करती ही group studies हैं अपने hostel के अंदर. But for me, the best way to retain stuff is video lectures. I personally use Boards and Beyond, because that is something which gives you an overall concept. And as far as preparing for the exam is concerned, so for that I use short books, because as I mentioned that most of the part of my year I spend in organizational work. So at the end when the exams are near, so I need to have a quick revision sort of a thing. So in that case, the short books really help me to get done with the exam, short books and past papers.
Have you found, since you're a fifth year, have you seen a big transition pre-COVID to now? Has your method of studying changed? Has anything changed for you academically since COVID started as versus to prior?
Okay, so before COVID, what we used to do as like my group of friends, what we used to do we were heavily dependent upon libraries, right? So we used to study in the library right after our wards till 10 o'clock. So we had a very productive day because library में एक पढ़ाई का माहौल generally बना हुआ होता था. But when COVID came and when we were forced to quarantine, तो घर के अंदर वो उस तरह का सेटअप नहीं बन पा रहा होता था पढ़ाई का, because you don't get the routine. We were sleeping at 6 o'clock in the morning, waking up at 5, and then the entire day passed away just like that. So that was one thing which was very challenging. So we had to adjust to a new method of studying at home. And then once we got used to study at home, then eventually the quarantine ended and the lockdown got lifted. So shifting back to the general routine of library was something which was difficult.
So you developed a routine. So how important do you value time management?
It is extremely important. If see 5 years हर स्टूडेंट के पास है डाउ के अंदर या मेडिकल स्कूल के अंदर, ठीक है. अब उस 5 years को अगर आपको अपने फुल पोटेंशियल पे यूज़ करना है, ठीक है, बिकॉज देयर आर सो मैनी थिंग्स एंड थिंग्स आर गेटिंग सो कॉम्पिटिटिव दैट you need to have each and everything on your CV, ठीक है. May it be researches, may it be organizational work, may it be volunteer work and academics. तो आपके पास एक एक चीज़ आपकी CV पे होनी चाहिए, सही है. तो 5 साल लगते बहुत ज़्यादा हैं, बट टाइम पासिस जस्ट लाइक दैट, ठीक है. तो इट्स एक्सट्रीमली इम्पॉर्टेंट दैट आप अपने टाइम को प्रॉपरली मैनेज करें, ठीक है. एंड टाइम मैनेजमेंट से ज़्यादा प्रायोरिटाइज़ करो कि व्हाट्स मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट फॉर यू, ठीक है. स्पेसिफिकली लाइक जो मुझसे जूनियर्स काफ़ी ज़्यादा ये चीज़ पूछते हैं कि हमें रिसर्च भी करनी है, हमें पढ़ना भी है और हमें सोसाइटीज़ में काम भी करना है. तो व्हाट डू यू थिंक कि हम क्या चीज़ पहले करें और क्या चीज़ बाद में करें. तो वन वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग पीस ऑफ एडवाइस के when you are in your first and second year, na, when you don't have wards and when you don't have your clinical rotation, you have a lot of time in your hand, ठीक है. तो that time can be utilized very well for doing welfare work and organizational work. And the research वाला aspect that can be done in the senior years as well, because तब आपके पास ज़्यादा clinical exposure होता है. It's much more easier for you to get the topics, it's more easier for you to get the data. So you need to prioritize, ठीक है, कि आपको पहले क्या करना है, आपके लिए अभी easy क्या है करना, कब आपके एग्ज़ाम्स आ रहे हैं, ठीक है. एंड देन उस हिसाब से you need to manage your time. So अक्सर क्या कहते हैं, बस लाइक फर्स्ट ईयर के जूनियर्स आ रहे होते हैं who are very ambitious about their careers. So they say कि हमारे पास रिसर्च करने को है, हमें यहाँ पर ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल एक्सपीरियंस लेने की अपॉर्चुनिटी नज़र आ रही है, एंड एट द सेम टाइम वी नीड टू मैनेज स्टडीज़ एज वेल. सो हम एक साथ ये सारी चीज़ें कैसे करें, बिकॉज व्हेन यू जॉइन डाउन ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स लाइक लुक्स वेरी ओवरवेलमिंग, ठीक है. एंड मैनेज करना बहुत ज़्यादा क्या कहते हैं लाइक मुश्किल लग रहा होता है कि यार क्या क्या करें डाउ आकर, सही है. तो स्पेसिफिकली फॉर द फर्स्ट एंड द सेकेंड ईयर स्टूडेंट्स, बिकॉज दे डोंट हैव देयर क्लिनिकल रोटेशंस, राइट, दे डोंट हैव देयर वर्ड्स, सो उनके पास ना बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम होता है, ठीक है, in their hands. So that time can be utilized for welfare work and for organizational work. So initial 2 years any medical student can spend getting their hands on the organization that are working in DAO, and uska experience ले सकते हैं, because researches is something which can be done in the later years as well. Because when you join the clinic, when you rotate in your ward, आपके पास जो टॉपिक के आइडियाज़ होते हैं वो आपको ज़्यादा आने शुरू हो जाते हैं, बिकॉज यू आर मोर इनटू द फील्ड, राइट. आपको ज़्यादा अच्छा एक्सपोजर मिल रहा होता है. उसके अलावा फॉर दोज हु वांट टू डू सम हायर लेवल स्टडीज़ लाइक क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स वगैरह, तो उसमें आपके पास एक बहुत बड़ा एडवांटेज होता है बीइंग इन द क्लिनिक्स, दैट यू कैन कनेक्ट योर सेल्फ टू डिफरेंट डॉक्टर्स. तो उनसे आपको पेशेंट का डेटा भी मिल जाता है, एंड लाइक एक्सेसिबिलिटी टुवर्ड्स द पेशेंट एंड गेटिंग एथिकल अप्रूवल for certain researches gets way much more easier when you collaborate with the senior doctor. So that is more easy, that is easier in basically third year onwards. So researches are something जो कि आप थोड़ा अपना delay करके third year onwards भी आप कर सकते हो, but जो शुरू के 2 years हैं, ठीक है, I think that's the golden period in which you can join as many organizations as you want, as far as you are managing your studies, because as I mentioned before that studies and your academics should be your priority.
Did you ever find yourself considering dropping some activity socially or even these extracurriculars to manage your academics more? Did you ever consider it, or was it always clear to you that that was your first priority?
No, I never considered dropping any activity. In fact, I had a lot of pressure from my family because when I mentioned that I got a low GPA initially, and at that time I was only part of SOCH and just a volunteer at PWA. So even at that time I had a lot of pressure from my family कि ये तुम क्या कर रहे हो और because it was my mother's dream basically to see me as a doctor, and she wasn't able to accept that I'm struggling at med school. So at that time she said कि तुम ये सब चीज़ें छोड़ो और अपनी पढ़ाई पे फोकस करो बिकॉज डाउ की पढ़ाई बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है अपेरेंटली उनके नज़रों में. तो एट दैट टाइम मैंने सोचा कि लाइक 2.7 आई थी. इट वाज अ वेरी डिप्रेसिव फेज दैट आई वाज गोइंग थ्रू. तो ऐसे थॉट्स आए थे बट इवेंचुअली व्हेन क्या कहते हैं आई गॉट माई हैंड्स क्लियर ऑन दी स्टडीज़ एंड एकेडमिक्स व्हेन माई एकेडमिक्स गॉट स्टेबल. हाँ, तो उसके बाद फिर क्या कहते हैं फ्रॉम दैट डे टिल नाउ नॉट वंस इवन दैट थॉट केम कि अच्छा ये चीज़ मैं छोड़ देता हूँ अपनी पढ़ाई की वजह से. सो या.
Why do you think a med student should get involved in these organizations? What benefits will it have eventually when you want to eventually get into residency programs or look into research? Because you've just mentioned that if you want to go into higher clinical approaches, then it comes to be useful. But how?
Okay, so let's suppose that the two of us, we apply to a job in the US and the UK after clearing our boards and after clearing our PLAB, whatever career pathway we choose. हम दोनों डाउ के ग्रेजुएट्स हैं, ठीक है. हम दोनों के बाद डाउ की डिग्री है, ठीक है. एंड दैट पर्टिकुलर एरिया हैज़ ओनली वन वैकेंसी अवेलेबल. सही है. तो हम दोनों के बाद डाउ की डिग्री है, हमारे स्कोर्स भी सेम है, हमारी GPA भी सेम है. What is that one thing that would differentiate me and you, and that would make the things much more easier for that interviewer or that program director हमें job देने के लिए. So what do you think कि क्या चीज़ differentiate?
They'll obviously look further than just your grades and your GPA. It'll come down to your extracurricular.
Not just the extracurriculars, because when you take part in these organizations na, and when you work with different people, ठीक है, people coming from different backgrounds, ठीक है, it really helps you groom and it really helps you tone your personality, and that is what really helps you get the position abroad, specifically in those places which are looking forward for people who have developed themselves holistically and who have an all-round personality. So that gives you the confidence to talk to people, that gives you the confidence to deal with stressing situation, and more importantly when you're working at higher levels in these organization, you get the opportunity to interact with people who are sitting abroad, who are sitting at higher positions. Let's suppose कि खास तौर पे specifically talking about our field, we all know that US electives are very important, right? And electives in the UK are also very important. So by working in these organizations, one incentive that someone could get is that it's much more easier for them to develop their contacts abroad, and that would really help them in their research projects as well, and in the future helping them in terms of career counseling and in terms of the US electives as well. So that is one thing which is very important when you're applying for a job.
So do you think that it is of benefit to share research opportunities, or it's something that you should keep more private? Because I know there's some people who find themselves being very competitive through medical school and they don't want to share necessarily all of the things they engage in. Do you think that multiple people doing similar researches limits them in any way, or do you think that it's always a...
No. I think sharing is something that would definitely benefit the students, because research is something which is not a single person's game, right? Because it's a very lengthy process and it consumes a lot of time, ठीक है. Because it's not just कि आपने बस टॉपिक जहन में आया and then आपने गूगल सर्च किया and then आपने लिख दिया, ठीक है. It's a very long process, starting with coming with a topic, doing the literature search, and if you're doing a research which is depending on data collection, so even that is a separate process. And उसके अलावा you need people of different skill sets for doing research, right? For example, if I have a topic, ठीक है, and मुझे क्या कहते हैं उस टॉपिक को पूरा कंप्लीट करना है, but I don't have the right skill set to do that topic. For example, एक एनालिसिस का आपको एक स्किल सेट चाहिए होता है रिसर्च के अंदर. पर्सनली मुझे एनालिसिस नहीं आती करनी, ठीक है. तो जो भी स्टडीज़ होती हैं रिसर्च की, मैं किसी ऐसे बंदे के पास ही ऑब्वियसली जाऊँगा जिसके पास एनालिसिस का स्किल सेट है. इफ़ मेरे पास राइटिंग का स्किल सेट है तो अगले के पास एनालिसिस का स्किल सेट है. सो we have people with different skill sets, right? तो एक बंदे तक लिमिट करके रखना रिसर्च आइडिया को isn't a very good idea because you won't be successful in that field अगर आप selfish approach रखोगे while doing research. So you should have an open approach to it and that's how you will learn because हो सकता है कि तुम मुझे कोई ऐसी चीज़ सिखा दो मुझे नहीं पता सही और मैं तुम्हें कोई चीज़ सिखा दूँ तो मैं नहीं पता, right? So keeping things private क्या कहते हैं wouldn't really help you grow the way it would अगर आप क्या कहते हैं openly or like collaboratively अगर आप काम करते हो.
So since I'm a first year and especially because of the COVID situation, we don't get that much exposure in school. So there's a void between me and I feel for many first years or second years that don't necessarily know about organizations and research and all of these. So how would you advise us to find these organizations and to be aware of these opportunities?
Okay, so the structure that we have developed in DAO with all the organizations that are there, we don't directly take people as associates or deputies अपनी organizations के अंदर. What we do is that before opening up positions, we organize an orientation session. Before COVID, we used to have it on ground or our classes में होता था, but for the past 1.5 years, we are having it online. So we would strongly recommend कि for the specifically once you join DAO, आप उन orientation sessions को attend करो. But let's suppose कि if you miss those orientation sessions, then there are different volunteering opportunities that are coming up from various organizations. So what you need to do is कि सबसे पहले you need to approach a senior who is socially active in these organizations and आप उनसे join करके आप एक overview ले लो उस organization का कि वो क्या करती हैं because multiple domains पे organizations काम कर रही हैं, right? There is an organization that is working for the patient's welfare, ठीक है? There is an organization that is working for the upliftment of the civil hospital. Then there is an organization that is working for specifically for medical students, like for example Excemy. It's completely dependent on the fact that it is helping the medical students. उसका welfare से कोई ऐसा लेना देना नहीं है. तो बहुत different domains में क्या कहते हैं organizations काम कर रही हैं. So it completely depends on which domain excites you, ठीक है? If you are passionate about helping your juniors, उस चीज़ के ऊपर join Excemy. But if you're passionate about helping the patient, join Patient Welfare Association. And if you think कि government hospitals की हालत तुम सही कर सकते हो आके तो then join SOCH. So that's how you basically research and decide कि अच्छा मुझे ये वाला organization join करनी है. And then you follow the page and eventually page पे updates आ रही होती हैं, volunteering opportunity आ रही हो सकती है. तो you can show your interest in those organizations and then later on when you apply तो that would show कि हाँ तुमने इस organization के बारे में तुम्हें पता है. And then eventually after going through the registration process, you can join those organizations.
So 5 years ago today, did you see yourself sitting where you are today in the Excemy Medical Studio?
So जितने सारा मैंने काम किया है वो मैंने इसी दिन के लिए किया ताकि मैं यहाँ बैठ के ये पॉडकास्ट अटेंड कर सकूँ Excemy का.
As you should.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing right now, right? So yeah, 5 years ago सबसे पहले तो मैं किसी पोजीशन पे भी पहुँचा हूँ नहीं, ठीक है? It's just the beginning of something big that I can do, alhamdulillah, because of my skill sets. So there is a long way to go and तो एक किसी पोजीशन पे मैं हूँ नहीं. But yeah, 5 years ago I never thought कि life would take such a turn and इतनी सारी opportunities और इतने सारे medical stuff मैं कर पाऊँगा. Because जो एक general impression जाता है कि medical school के अंदर सिर्फ डॉक्टरी की पढ़ाई होती है. आप होते हो, आपका मरीज़ होता है और आपकी पढ़ाई होती है. बट इसी इंप्रेशन के साथ और इसी माइंडसेट के साथ आई स्टेप इनटू डाउ. सो 5 years ago मेरे जहन में बिल्कुल भी नहीं था कि दैट इतनी सारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ मिलेंगी और क्रिएट करने का मौका मिलेगा. सो इट्स जस्ट द बिगनिंग एंड होपफुली इफ़ थिंग्स गोज़ द वे दैट दे आर गोइंग राइट नाउ तो आगे भी क्या कहते हैं और भी चीज़ें इंशाल्लाह करनी है. बट उसके लिए टाइम है अभी.
So you say it's just the beginning, so what's next?
What's next? Preparing for getting graduate and starting house job and then let's see how things goes and where life takes us.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been so enlightening because as a first year, especially being online and not on campus as much, we don't get this much interaction with our seniors unless you're a hostelite. And for me personally speaking, I'm not, and I speak for many out there. So I've learned so much through this and I can't wait to apply it, inshallah. As for all of you watching, if you have any questions for Mr. Sarosh Siddiqui, please feel free to comment below and do share this video if you found it useful. Until next time.